Here's the deal. You gotta be a goddamn retard if you don't think that white supremacy is real. White privilege is real. All that shit's real. So here's the thing. This country was made to benefit them. I don't care what some apologist says. It was created to benefit them. Now that's not to say there isn't any opportunity for Nick Dogs and Beaners and all that shit, but the country's created for them. So if something happens between a black guy and a white guy, unless he's major league trailer trash, they're gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. You're gonna have an uphill battle. The thing is this: if you look at the unemployment rate, there are plenty of qualified nignogs out there, and affirmative action isn't making enough of a difference to keep them from getting hired. They're still technically red zoned in that their neighborhoods are so far from opportunity in a lot of states that they can't really get any good jobs. They can go work for Tyson's Chicken picking feathers and stuff like that, or working at some warehouse and making $10 an hour, but they're not going to get the opportunity to go to a place like Harvard. They ain't going to get it, Jack and Dandy. Here's the deal. A lot of these niggity jiggities just aren't in a position to exert any sort of power, to create any sort of foundation for themselves, because they're just too far away and there's no real solidarity amongst them to where they can, fight that or work together to deal with that situation. Because like I said before, niggity jiggities have their own colleges, they have their own businesses. There are plenty of black business leaders and execs and stuff. That's what the real movie stars and shit. That's what ignorant niggity jiggities think, because that's all they know. It's a prime example, actually. They don't know about these opportunities. They don't know. They don't have the access. Excuse me. They don't have the knowledge of how to get access to these kind of people, and so then they're falling by the wayside. There's no way to combat white supremacy. If you notice, Mongoloids in large cities and in California can be on par with the whites in terms of economic development, economic opportunities, education, because they have solid communities. You'll see a Viet Cong working with a Jap, working with a Chinese, Chinaman, you got the whole deal. They're all working together, except for with Filipinos. And so, who are usually making up the bulk of the labor class. So you'll go into like a hospital or something like that. You'll have a bunch of Filipino workers, and then you'll have Chinese managers, because they recognize the hierarchy and they know how to benefit themselves from that situation. Whereas the niggity jiggities really don't take advantage of that outside of working in post office on the East Coast and McDonald's on average. And so even though there's a large black, I guess, working middle class-ish, whatever you want to call that, there still isn't that solid base to keep a lot of blacks in the job pool. And even as far as illegal crimes go, that money doesn't really circulate in the community either. So you got gangbangers who sling rocks. They're going to go to the dealership in a white part of town and buy the car. They're going to go out downtown to the Macy's and the Bloomingdale's, and they're going to buy shirts and all that there. They're not going to do it in the hood. You have little pockets where you have little places set up, but a lot of times they're owned by Koreans. So in the end, I really didn't give an example of I guess, white privilege, but it exists. It's just a preference for the majority. Now, a lot of people, another thing I want to touch on is there's a lot of blacks are delusional about Obama. Right? They think that there's no Illuminati, no New World Order, none of this crap. In reality, there is. I don't know what it's called. You don't know what it's called. Maybe you do. I don't know or care. Obama is not here to help blacks. He was not elected because he was black. He was elected because they saw him opportunities for the United States, and he has to set up a base in Uganda. They haven't announced it yet, but he's going to help get rid of the Lord's Resistance Army. And in return, they're probably going to give him land for a base, an AFRICOM base that was denied by almost every African nation except for I think Egypt or some nation, I forget, Liberia. But everyone else was said no. Thing, he took a large number of troops out of Iraq. But what did he do instead? He put in 100,000 mercenaries to replace them. So the mercenaries over there doing whatever the hell they want. They've also got mercenaries in Yemen. They've got mercenaries in Somalia. They're still doing their thing in Costa Rica. You know, he's no slouch. He's a scumbag. He's a goddamn scumbag, but he's no slouch. And then he gives these meaningless gestures like getting rid of the mandatory sentencing on crack. A lot of states have been doing that way before he got elected, so that's meaningless, especially since crack is at an all-time low. So, I mean, you know, it's not an example of changing racial climate. It's not an example of turning the tide in the world. The only real change in that west to the east, and a lot of the rich people, black, white, and the otherwise, are going to the east. They're taking their money out of Switzerland. They're moving it to places like Singapore. They're not worried about that. Obama's a shill. And he is, but in the end, you are not going to gain a single thing from Obama or any guy after him or before him. That you think you're getting, because the unemployment rate is still going up, and you little everybody but whites, like their white lawyers, their friends, you know, that's all it is. You guys are getting scammed. And I'm just gonna Dandies are getting screwed. Their own kind.